I'm so blessed. What a life. What an incredible life. You know, that whole era of sex, drugs, and rock and roll connotes, well, it just connotes exactly what it sounds like. Like everybody's doing drugs and everybody's having sex with each other, and that's not how it was for us. David had already done all his drugs with Deep Purple and stopped, and I never did drugs and I never drank. So we were very professional, and we wanted to present ourselves as such. Yeah, and then we wanted to get to sleep early. None of the guys in Whitesnake, nobody did drugs, nobody drank. I mean, David would have a little bit of, cognac at the end of the evening, to slow down, and that was about it. But it was a different story when we first started and we had to open for Motley Crue. Then the drugs and the alcohol and the girls came out. That was wild. And I was getting up to go to the restaurant, and John Sykes was having dinner with David. And John came up to me and he said, "Would you care to have a drink with me and my friend?" And I said, "No, sorry. No, I don't drink. So no, thank you." So I walked off to the ladies' room. I came back, and David, being as smooth as he is, as any of you know, he said to me, "Would you care to have a cup of tea with me and my friend?" And I said, "A cup of tea I can have, yes." So that's how we met. So very smart thinking, very smart. Years ago, I was at a screening for a movie at Grauman's Chinese Theater, and the after party was going to be at the Roosevelt Hotel across the street. I left the movie a little early, walked into the ballroom. There was nobody in there except for this guy, and this guy was about 20 feet from me, and that was it. It was just him in this room, and you could feel this electricity. And I was like, "Is there a light bulb out? Is there, is something wrong with one of the outlets? Something's going on." And this guy turns around and he looks at me, and I'm like, I don't recognize him. But he just exuded this type of charisma. Well, about 6 months later, Thelma and Louise comes out, and I recognize the face, and it's Brad Pitt. Oh. And I'm telling you, I have he's the only actor that I have met, and I've met tons like you guys and all our rock stars that had this incredible charisma. Kobe Bryant lived just down the street from us, and that was, as you guys know, and he was another guy who what you saw is what you got. Just a wonderful human being. My second ex-husband, who was a baseball player, 6'7", and they when Kobe would have birthday parties for his kids, the Shaq and all the guys would come down, and I felt so sorry for the other husbands because they were left over on that side, and only you had to be 6'7" and taller to hang with this crew over there. So and plus Chuck was a famous baseball player as well. But yeah, it really tore up our city horribly. I mean, we moved down here, and I can kind of speak for Kobe as well on this, because we don't have paparazzi, and we can live our lives and not, it's not fun leaving your house, and every time you leave, there's a camera following you. So living in Newport Beach is probably one of the top 5, if not the top 3 nicest places to live in America. And yeah, and to have Kobe, and every day you would see him, and he was just such a great guy. And it tore our city apart, absolutely tore us apart. I went out on a couple, I was young, I was 20. I feel like that whole, even though I don't count myself in, but it was like the Me Too, where the guy was older and you were younger, and they were kind of like the Svengali. And so he was very, very well educated, very smart, and just quite a interesting man. So I went out with him a couple of times for dinner. And I remember one time I was in New York and he met me for dinner. He happened to be there as well. And we would always get into this. I would always say to him, you think everybody in the world knows who you are? Like, you just think that, like, wherever you go, you just think everybody knows who you are. So we walked into this hotel on 6th Avenue that was owned by a friend of ours that owns the New York Jets. And there were 6 diplomats from China who didn't speak a word of English. They had their sashes on, they had their medals on, the whole thing. And they took one look at him and they went, oh, OJ Simpson. Talk about charisma. Honestly, I remember walking down by one of the, like, 59th Street, and they were doing construction, and the guys up on the 25th floor were yelling down, hey, OJ. I'm like, how do you recognize OJ from 25 stories up? But the world just, I mean, I don't know if I can say the world, but America was just absolutely enthralled with him. And so I got to spend 3.5 years of my life touring the world with Van Halen. So I obviously got to know Eddie and Michael and Alex and David extremely well. And Eddie was one of those guys, if any of you had ever met Eddie, he was just, what you see is what you get. And he never changed with the amount of godness that he had. But David lived with Pete and I, and Pete, my boyfriend, eventually became the manager of Van Halen. And he also managed the Black Crowes and a few other bands. But David, we were the 3 amigos, and we would vacation together. I mean, why he had all this money? The catalogs were split 4 ways, and he slept on our couch for 6 months. So one time we're in St. Lucia in the Bahamas, and David goes, "Give me your purse," as we're going through customs, and I'm like, "Why?" He's just, "Give me your purse, give me your purse." So I gave him my purse. And on the other side of customs, I get my purse. He goes, "Give me back your purse, give me back your purse." And he pulled out an ounce of cocaine. And I was I was young, but I knew what an ounce of cocaine was going to get me. I mean, the guy put me in such jeopardy. I could have done 10 years in jail. And I said, "David, why did you do that to me?" He goes, "Because look at me and look at you. They were going to ravish my stuff and they weren't going to go through any of yours. So I knew you'd be fine." A very, very sweet Paula Abdul was hired to come do the choreography. And she got there. The cars were all lined up. Everything was lit. We're ready to go. And she said, "So do you have any dance background?" And I said, "I was a gymnast and a ballerina." She goes, okay, show me what you got. So I got on top of the cars and I started doing my front walkovers and backflips and everything. And she turned around to Marty Callner and she went, she doesn't need me. And she left. Wow. And Marty went, action. And that's exactly how we shot that video. I mean, who gets to tour with Eddie Van Halen for 3.5 years on a you know, one of the greatest guitar players that ever lived, and then Rat and Duran Duran and Motley Crue and everything else, and oh, and I also got to pick the opening acts, and so they would give me the cassette, and one of the cassettes that they gave me was this little band that no one had heard of called Guns N' Roses. And I heard their music and I went, absolutely not. They are going to blow Whitesnake off the stage. I am not letting these guys open for Whitesnake. So I turned them down. But I mean, I mean, just what I was able to do, what I got to do, I look back on that and I do not for a second take any of my stories or anything that I got to do for granted. It was just an incredible, incredible life. And whoever dropped me in the middle of that, I am so grateful for.